What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here, back with another video. So in this one, I thought I would go through the Raptors' likeliest trade candidates ahead of the 2025 NBA trade deadline and tell you who I realistically see this team trading. Do me a solid, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. So really, there are 4 players on this team who I consider realistic trade candidates for the Toronto Raptors, and we'll get into all of them. So the 4 I see in no particular order: Jakob Poeltl, Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, and Chris Boucher. So let's first talk about Jakob Poeltl. He is the biggest talking point, if you will, when it comes to if the Raptors are going to trade him. So unfortunately for Poeltl and for the Raptors, who have had just a season from hell in terms of all these injuries, Jakob Poeltl, he awkwardly fell in that game against the Chicago Bulls in the fourth quarter, and then he did not return. Basically, it's a left groin strain. There's more imaging being done today, and Blake Murphy reported that Poeltl is feeling sore, so we should know more either later on today or tomorrow about Poeltl. Hopefully, he's not gone for too long, but you look at Jakob Poeltl's value, I think it's going to be significant. I mean, this is a center who can bring a lot to a contending team, and I think he is going to garner a lot of interest. However, based on kind of the feeling of the team and this recent report from Michael Grange, it does seem unlikely that a Poeltl trade will happen. So this is what Grange said the other day about Poeltl, and I quote, "At his age and his number, I believe the sources I've talked with who predict he's more likely to be part of the Raptors' bounce back next season and beyond rather than dangled at the trade deadline for whatever combination of young talent, draft assets a rebuilding team might be hunting for. With Barnes and Emmanuel quickly already on long-term deals, it's hard to imagine the Raptors having another lottery-focused season a year from now. The goal is to swoop in and get lucky in the lottery this summer and hopefully start pushing to get back into contention, a pretty shaky Eastern Conference." So, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If the Raptors feel like they can bounce back and all of a sudden be a player in the East, you're not going to trade Poeltl. And I always thought a Jakob Poeltl trade was going to be difficult, and it was going to come down to, is it even worth it? Because I know I've said many times in the past, trade Poeltl while his value is high, but you're not going to just trade Poeltl for the sake of trading Poeltl. It has to be just an incredible haul, and that's the only circumstance here. Like, if you're going to get a home run deal, yeah, you got to seriously consider it. But if it's not to your liking, or it's barely a home run deal or less than that, you're not going to take it. The Raptors are in no position to be forced to trade Poeltl, and based on what Grange said, if this is a team that feels like, hey, we can still lose a bunch of games, still put ourselves in the best position to get a top pick in the lottery, which right now they look to be in a really good position when it comes to doing that, and then you get guys back, and then you have Poeltl playing center, and all of a sudden you have a balanced, complete team going to next season. This team could potentially be a fun one to watch, and they could be an interesting one in an East that is really weak. So I would probably lean more towards Poeltl not getting traded. My biggest thing with the whole Poeltl thing was I would, you want to try to lock in a top 5 pick, even better than that. And Poeltl obviously contributes to this team being a much better team at winning. But if you can still lose, and let's just say Poeltl now misses time and he's on the shelf, well, that really diminishes any trade conversation from there. But if you can still lose with Poeltl and you can keep him going into next season with a top 5, top 3 pick, then the Raptors, like I said, they probably are in best interest to keep Poeltl, unless it's just a standout trade that just wows Masai and company. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Poeltl's not going to get traded, and it does seem unlikely at this point. All right, the other one is Bruce Brown. This was according to the Athletics' Jovan Buha, saying other names that have come up in talks with the team, the Lakers, he's talking about here, and league personnel over the past few weeks include Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and then I'm not going to mention all the names. He does mention Bruce Brown. So basically, Jovan Buha of The Athletic linked Bruce Brown to the Lakers. Brown's going to be an interesting one. I do think the Raptors are going to try to trade him. He's one of my likely trade candidates here. $23 million expiring contract, though. That might be the issue in terms of getting a haul back, because obviously working with that number, you're going to have to get to that salary. And we know the Raptors are going to want draft capital as well. So he did link Brown to the Lakers. And you look at a potential deal, the Lakers would have to include one of D'Angelo Russell, who's making 18.7 mil, Rui Hachimura, who's making 17 mil, Gabe Vincent, who's making 11 mil. But then also they would have to include smaller contracts like a Christian Wood, Reddish, Maxwell Lewis. The interesting one is Jalen Hood-Schifino. If the Lakers have given up on him, if they would be willing to include him in a deal. And of course, those smaller contracts would be included to serve as salary filler to make the trade work. And then obviously, on top of that, the Raptors would likely ask for draft capital, right? And the Lakers, they have already traded away its 2025 and 2027 first round picks, but they still do hold their 3 first round picks from 2029 to 2031 that could be moved in a deal. So that's what it's going to take for Brown. Salary to match and draft capital. And the Lakers mentioned as a possible suitor. I do think Bruce Brown is getting traded. I hope it ends up being a good haul for the Raptors, but I would put him and the next guy I'm going to talk about here, Boucher, is the most likely. And I forgot to mention him, but honestly, it's not even worth mentioning. Kelly Olynyk, he's not getting moved. I just don't see the Raptors parting ways with Olynyk. He does serve as a valuable veteran piece on this team, so not even going to spend time on that. Olynyk's not getting moved. So Brown and Boucher is the other big one. And I think Boucher is the easier one to move just because that 10.8 expiring contract, that's feasible for teams to take on. And Boucher's a guy who can bring a lot of energy, shot blocking, three-point shooting from off the bench. I think that would be a valuable asset to a lot of teams. This is a guy who fell out of the Raptors rotation. He did play in that game against the Bulls, but really, Boucher's long-term plans here are non-existent. It's a foregone conclusion. The Raptors, we already heard rumors of them trying to move him last season. Didn't happen, but I think Boucher is gone. He's done a lot here. He's the lone member of the Raptors 2019 championship team. So it's definitely going to be bittersweet, especially if you're a fan of Boucher, but it just doesn't make any sense. And I think the Raptors can move him, and it will be a much more easier pathway to move him. You're not going to get a first-round pick, obviously, but you could probably fork over a second-rounder and obviously salary filler. So I would have Boucher as the most likely, followed by Brown. The thing with Brown is his salary, because it's a larger $23 million. You got to just make it work. But I still do think teams are going to be calling the Raptors up and asking for Bruce Brown. Brown's been a name that has been rumored to be traded by the Raptors since he came here in that Siakam deal. So those are the two guys I see on the move for the Raptors. In terms of the other two, the veterans, the centers, Olynyk and Poeltl, I would put as unlikely to be moved. So we'll see what happens. But what do you guys think? Who do you think's going to move? I do think Brown and Boucher will be on their way out, and Olynyk and Poeltl aren't going anywhere when it's all said and done. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. That is it for me, Luke, signing off. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you all again in the next one.